This just news in. Here's that news, some of it. This is some news, more of it. People are awfully concerned about vaping, a thing that, much like the new Joker movie, is mostly enjoyed by insufferable young men, is vaguely but probably not harmful, and just exhausting to talk about. Like, even the word itself, with all them V's and P's, it makes it physically taxing to say. Vape... I hate it. According to the CDC, as of the taping of this episode, there has been a recent outbreak of vaping-related pulmonary illness, including over 1,000 mostly young victims and nearly 20 deaths. And what seems to make that even scarier is that no one can definitively say why that's happening. A lot of these deaths or medical emergencies are being linked to THC products from the black market, while other studies are pointing out that perhaps inhaling oil is not great. And here's another investigation linking it with vitamin E? But even before this specific scare, this hip new way to inhale things not normally inhaled has been the subject of much debate over its attractiveness to teens, possible health effects, and future in America. Should we ban vaping? Or should we celebrate it as a safer alternative to cigarettes? Is it even helping people quit? It is, objectively, a safer, futuristic way to inhale drugs. And that's like some kind of Star Trek. The final blunt here. And aw heck, roughly the same amount of people have been killed by falling coconuts as e-cigarettes. But the difference is that we at least know why that happens. We're seeing the plane crash effect, where the death is so dramatic and horrific that we don't care how statistically probable it is. After all, even if you don't vape yourself, you probably know someone who does. Perhaps a sibling or friend or a son that you only remember is biologically yours until halfway through a sentence describing him.
And I'm hearing it, and that's how the First Lady got involved. And she's got a son together that is a beautiful young man, and she feels very, very strongly about it.
Every word from that man is a gift. Except for the racist and sexist stuff, and publicly threatening for a civil war when he gets caught for doing crimes. But all those other words, golden treasure. A little more.
Especially vaping as it pertains to innocent children. And they're coming home and they're saying, Mom, I want to vape.
Yum. One more time.
Mom, I want to vape.
Yum. Anyway. So is our vaping fear merely a reactionary media panic over something new and confusing, and we're pretty goddamn hypocritical about what we decide is and isn't harmful? Probably yes. But to be balanced and fair, but mostly balanced, but also fair again, in order to balance things out, which I guess would add an extra balance and make me more balanced than fair, and therefore not as balanced as I hope, and I apologize. But to be all of that, I want to take a moment to point out that while vaping is a far better alternative to smoking, it's not really being used to quit, and in most cases just replaces one addiction with another, albeit a healthier one. But it's still an addiction. It's still paying a company lots of money for a dependence. And if you're using nicotine e-cigarettes, that can actually get you more hooked to the substance because of how easy it is to do. There are now people talking about how they had to switch back to cigarettes to ease their addiction. So no, it's not a great way to quit smoking, and it's actually reversed a lot of progress in getting teenagers to quit a dependence. According to the American Lung Association, the best association to get all your sweet lung facts, tobacco use amongst teens peaked in the 90s, with 36.4% of students admitting to smoking cigarettes. As we tightened restrictions over the years, that number went down to 9.3% in 2015. But don't worry, people who like it when teens inhale stuff not normally inhaled, because at the same time, the use of e-cigarettes went up, and according to multiple studies, is currently at around 37.3% for teens who vape. You might recognize how those two numbers are very similar, and in fact, the current one is the highest of the two. But to be clear, that's still healthier than smoking, and not all vaping includes nicotine. But even if you're not vaping nicotine, you're still putting something in an orifice that has no business being in that orifice. And as evidenced by the recent epidemic, every time humans stick something new in one of their orifices, there's going to be a chance your body won't enjoy having that thing inside of it, and it will try to die. But again, better than smoking. But also, not good for you, even without the nicotine. Like, if everyone stopped drinking alcohol and instead had big parties where they binged on gallons of maple syrup, that would be technically better, sure. but also bad. Good-ish and bad. Like a word between those two words. Booed, perhaps. We've created a device that allows you to inhale any liquid you want smoke-free, potentially creating an alternative to a much deadlier product. But we also didn't regulate that device. Additionally, we also created teenagers, a type of people who, if they're cool enough, are willing to inhale just about anything, assuming they're cool and not babies. There's entire subreddits devoted to DIY vaping. And here are some videos of young folks inhaling everything from ketchup to hot sauce to f***ing hand sanitizer. Here's a forum with some kid asking if they could vape soda and energy drinks. The answer obviously being, yes, if you're cool enough. Like, that kind of cool misuse is obviously bad. But since we're still trying to figure out just how bad the commercial e-liquids are and why they're bad, it's become a tad complicated situation. Especially since we blew the first couple decades of e-cigarette existence completely ignoring the possibility of health consequences, and in fact helped tobacco companies profit from them. Hey! Did you hear about that time the FDA tried to ban kid-friendly vaping flavors back in 2015? It was a proposal backed by countless scientists and health experts, pointing out that vaping companies were using the same flavor ingredients in their nicotine products as popular candies, and were clearly designed to attract children. Then a bunch of Obama administration officials met with tobacco lobbyists for 50 days, having a series of meetings aimed at debunking the FDA rule. Altria Group, a company heavily invested in Juul that was formerly known as Philip f***ing Morris, sent 4 representatives to help push an industry-friendly version of the legislation. When the FDA rule was eventually passed, it had completely excluded any kind of flavoring ban and wiped out 15 pages of evidence supporting the link between flavors and youth smoking. This is according to the LA Times, who recently went through the early drafts of the FDA's rule, as well as meeting logs detailing the insane and effective effort from tobacco companies to influence the then current administration to completely sell out high school kids in order to protect an industry that's literally manufacturing addiction. Thanks, Obama! I'm not even sarcastically being sarcastic. I'm legitimately, non-sarcastically saying that sarcastic thing people say thanking Obama when they really don't like Obama because he really f***ed up there. That is a scandal, and it doesn't even involve bombing a civilian wedding. Anyway, so now that's where we are, and instead of figuring out the nuance of this issue, we're eyeballing the possibility of banning vaping altogether. Like if you ignored your car's check engine light for 10 years before just pushing it into a quarry, which of course is the proper way to dispose of cars and appliances and chemicals and stuff. And as the panic ramps, people are just gonna get dumber about finding solutions, such as this high school that removed its bathroom stall doors to combat vaping, which is silly because high school teens need bathroom doors more than anyone. You know, to hide from the shooters. Anyway, Mr. President, any comment about how kids are getting shot all the time?
Vaping has become a very big business, as I understand it, like a giant business in a very short period of time. But we can't allow people to get sick, and we can't have our youth be so affected.
Sure, whatever, I hate all of this. But also, he's not wrong. We shouldn't have our youth get affected by large companies profiting off of their sickness. No, not that youth. The other ones, with the mostly white faces. But seriously, if Trump manages to ban flavored nicotine e-cigarettes despite overwhelming industry influence, then he will have actually done something better than Obama. And perhaps we should, for the sake of a greater good, point that out to him a bunch. So that's the plan. We're gonna get Trump to ban flavored vaping. Then I don't know, impeach him for the other stuff. Then we can dust off our hands, turn off the internet, and enjoy a cushy Mike Pence presidency. Everything solved. Only, for the sake of argument, let's say that none of what I just said was good or true. I mean, yes, I believe I've stressed that vaping isn't healthy and should ideally exist in a world where it's used to curb the habits of cigarette smokers, and failing that, at least not be made to appeal to teenagers. This is all true. But also true is that since vaping didn't immediately fall under any specific regulatory category, the government spent nearly 2 decades just completely ignoring the dangers. and in that time created a situation where countless small businesses could be formed solely around vaping. Businesses often run by lower class folks living out exactly what the American dream and capitalism is supposed to be. And now that states are issuing sweeping bans, those small businesses are going to no longer have a product. Many of these businesses are currently speaking up, even suing states over this. But none of that will matter because, unlike gun violence and healthcare reform, vaping is something that actually affects the people in charge. We must save Barron, you guys! You can already see the dark irony forming. Because if we get a sweeping ban of flavored e-cigarettes, the only businesses that would survive are big vaping brands like Blue or Views or Juul, all of which are owned by large tobacco companies. The same companies that e-cigarettes are supposed to combat. The same companies that have literally tried to fight against vaping to protect their bigger product. In what is the hilarious reality of capitalism, these large companies came in to lobby against a flavor ban long enough to hook high schoolers, and then will have their competition wiped out when that ban finally goes into effect. Another much-needed win for the gold-plated taints everywhere. Good job. Oh, fun bit of information. Tobacco companies are doing great. When the government created a bunch of regulations and they got sued and all that, they just raised their prices and conducted a series of giant mergers to counteract it. It's a real rags to riches to getting richer and staying rich and then killing a bunch of people to getting sued and then back to riches story. Two of those companies, Reynolds American and Lorillard, recently merged into a super company despite the fact that they were already once part of a single company that our government forced to break up back in 1911. Capitalism is just aces. Thumbs up. So, god damn it, where do we go from here? On one hand, we're selling a product that is dangerous. But on the other hand, we don't know how dangerous it is, and banning it would destroy thousands of businesses and hand more power to the already powerful. It's almost as if there needs to be like a third option. Like if banning vaping was the color black, and not banning vaping was the color white. There should be like an area between those two colors, like a blue, white, or whack. Because it's not like e-cigarettes are the only harmful product we allow to be sold in the country. We have the right, as consenting adults, to consume something that kills us a little bit in exchange for a brief moment of shade from the blinding light that is reality. Most everyone has an addiction. I'm on PCP right now, and you don't see the government cracking down on... Really? When did that? I'm not on PCP and never have done PCP before and don't do PCP now and won't do PCP later. So what's a better solution? I mean, we could maybe try doing better with the regulations we already have, for starters, because at the moment we're absolutely not doing that. Last year, when the Atlanta Journal-Constitution tried to figure out how many inspections of vape shops were happening in Georgia, they were told by the Department of Revenue to ask the FDA, who told them to ask the State Department of Public Health, who told them to ask the Department of Revenue again. They also found that, thanks to the weird confusion and lack of enforcement, most teens in that state could easily buy e-cigarettes despite being underage. And that makes sense. If you don't enforce the laws, then yeah, the laws won't work. In case you need more proof of this glaringly obvious fact, here's a study in the journal Pediatrics that also found teen vaping was a third more likely in areas where vaping laws were more lax because, no poop. Also in the, yeah, no poop, you dopes category is the fact that many of the e-juice flavors currently approved by the FDA have only been technically cleared for ingestion and not inhalation. You know, because if you can put something in one of your organs, you can definitely put it in all of your organs. That's just biology. Oh, and here's a study in the journal Environmental Health Perspectives that points out the vape pens themselves could possibly be releasing metal into you. Into your body. Specifically the part of your body that gives you air. But hey, we probably don't have to look into that. So, it might be a good idea to, before issuing a complete ban on something that isn't nearly as dangerous as guns or actual cigarettes, just try to enforce the laws better first. Maybe punch up those shoddy regulations and do a few more studies to figure out how we can avoid inhaling metal. Do more crackdowns on shady vaping manufacturers and make sure the retailers are complying with the regulations. Maybe that's just crazy PCP talk. It's just talk. Why would I say PCP? I didn't mean whatever it is I said. It just makes you appreciate the marijuana industry for really having to walk that line, something the vaping industry may or may not be able to do. There's a fear that legalized weed and regulation would create a similar situation where big tobacco would overtake the product and we would kill everything that makes weed awesome. And while that will happen to an extent, luckily the direction the industry is going in more closely resembles craft beer, where, thanks to the laws being different in each state, different marijuana strains are enjoyed as a regional product that encourages a lot of locally owned businesses. Weed and vaping, while very different in some ways, share a symbiotic relationship. A lot of people vape THC. Not to mention that demonization of vaping, and vaping as it relates to small businesses and the working class, is similar to what happened when weed was first criminalized. Ironically, starting in California, a state that is 80% weed now. And the weed industry knows this, and is currently asking that we open up legalizations on both weed and vaping as a way to better regulate both of those things, which is probably the smarter route. Because again, we're at a crossroads here. We can accept that vaping isn't healthy, stop pretending it's a magic alternative to smoking, but also keep it available, in variety, and highly regulated. Perhaps we can allow flavored vaping only when there's no nicotine and closer scrutiny over the ingredients, completely stop online sales, and hold businesses more accountable for selling to underage kids. Or we can ban everything that isn't available behind the counter of a 7-Eleven, snuff out the vaping industry, and hand e-cigarettes over to the major tobacco corporations who can make money off of pretending there's a healthy alternative to cigarettes. It's just so arbitrary, you know? The things we choose to ban versus the drugs we approve and the terrible food we allow. And it's all just tied to the status quo. Nobody panics when things go according to plan, even if the plan is horrifying. Like, if I said that a truckload of soldiers will be blown up, nobody panics when they blow up because it's all part of the plan. But when I say that, like one little old sick Barron will get sick, well then everyone loses their minds. Great quote by me, the Cody. Somebody stop me! I'm the Joker! It's my favorite quote from the new film. And thanks for watching the video. Like and subscribe. The YouTube stuff. Check out our patreon.com/somemorenews if you want to support us. And we got a TeePublic if you like merch. And we got a podcast, and it's called Even More News. And it's got a great audience that's super cute. And we love you.